Thank you guys for tuning in. You're still watching Live with Candice and Kris, and now it is time for Unfiltered. This is the part of the show where we highlight a featured guest and talk about all the things that they have going on. Now, today's guest is a world-renowned Indian vegan chef. She's self-taught. She's a Food Network champion. Just to give you a quick rundown of some of her accolades, she's been featured on Bon Appetit, CNN, Forbes, GQ, The Beat, Glamour Magazine, just to name a few. And she's here today to promote her brand new cookbook, The Modern Tiffin. Please welcome via Skype Miss Priyanka Naik to the show.
Woo!
Yeah. How are you, Priyanka?
Hello!
Thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited. We have so many questions for you.
Thank you.
It's so nice to meet you all. It's always so awkward to kind of listen to your resume when someone reads it out. I'm like, oh, I forgot I did all this.
Is it embarrassing? Is it embarrassing a little bit?
It's a little bit embarrassing, but it's okay. Yeah, I mean, I did that, so let's talk about it.
Pat yourself on the back,
It makes you take credit and say, yeah, I went down that list. I did that. Well, we have your new cookbook here, and let me tell you, I love it. Okay, I love it. But we got some questions. So, of course, first up, the obvious, I think. What made you become a vegan?
Oh, well, I primarily grew up vegetarian. I am first generation Indian, but I am specifically Maharashtrian, which is from the state of Maharashtra, where Mumbai is, which everyone knows. And the style of cooking that we have at home is very much vegetable forward. In fact, there's really no dairy in it. We do not eat meat, and a lot of the cooking style is a lot of vegetables that are sauteed and legumes and light breads and rice. So I grew up eating a lot of that at home, and the only reason that my sisters and I kind of evolved into eating chicken and seafood was because the options were so limited in the 90s, even growing up in New York City. So going to school, going on trips, hanging with friends, being social, it was just really limited. So we kind of started incorporating chicken into our diet. But then I evolved back out of that into becoming fully vegetarian and now vegan for the last 4 or 5 years, really for animal and environmental reasons, because at the core, I am a huge animal lover. I believe that every being should be treated as we want to be treated, with compassion and respect. And then also for environmental reasons. I've basically watched one too many documentaries and read books. And I just know that our daily impact, especially with what we consume and how we consume it, really can make a difference on the longevity for our planet.
Wow.
That does. Wow.
So,
that is absolutely amazing.
So Priyanka, I see that one of your concentrations is sustainable cooking. What exactly is that?
Yeah, so just because you're, vegetarian or vegan doesn't necessarily mean you're sustainable. So what I mean by that is I don't cook with or consume anything with palm oil. And I'm not talking about the red palm oil that's indigenous to Africa, but I'm talking about the manufactured palm oil that's mainly manufactured in Indonesia and Costa Rica. It's not good for the environment at all, or animals. So that's one part of sustainability, which I don't incorporate anything with palm oil. But really, the second part of it, and the most focus for my kind of day-to-day and my cooking style, is minimizing food wastage. So how can we compost in big cities? How can we use all of the vegetable from the top of the carrots to the bottom so we minimize food wastage? In the US, I believe the statistic is that over 40% of food is wasted, and many of it doesn't even make it to the grocery store shelves. So my mission is to try and figure out how can we incorporate easy ways into our day-to-day lives that help at least have a more positive effect on that. So that's kind of my approach to sustainability, because I think it's equally as important, probably more important than even just being vegan.
Wow. And how sad is that in a country that is just taken over by homelessness? That's pretty sad. But I have another one for you. So we're going to get into the fun part of it. So how did eco-vegan begin? Because when I tell you, it is everything.
Oh my God, yeah. So eco-vegan is my new show on Pinterest.
Yeah.
And well, I obviously am huge kind of on all social platforms. I use them all regularly. They all have their own value. And so Pinterest is a really great place for creatives, especially food people. And they actually reached out to me earlier this year because they were developing a program with really a handful of chef personalities and chef creators. And they asked me, like, we want to build a show with you. And we obviously know you're vegan. And I was like, well, yes, I'm vegan, but I'm also sustainable. So I kind of brainstormed different ideas as to how I can incorporate both. And that's how Eco Vegan came about, where basically the first episode, let's say, will focus on potatoes, but I have to peel the potatoes for that recipe. But instead of wasting those peels, in the next episode, I show how you can use these peels, right?
Oh,
and then
okay.
so I do that with carrot tops and then carrot bottoms. And my latest one is chickpeas and then aquafaba, which is the chickpea water from cans. And so it's just a really fun way to get people to think about their food more holistically, to think about minimizing wastage, and to also bring new light to vegan food, because vegan food kind of gets a bad rep and nothing I eat is bland, and it's certainly not a salad. I actually don't like salads at all because I really hate chewing a lot. So
that's interesting.
I know.
Well, Priyanka, we have so much more to talk about, but we got to take a quick break. So we stick around with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Live with Candice and Kris. We're taking you into Culture Shock, where we discuss everything from the South versus Jamaica, but it's also versus a super chef that we have that's joining us back. Priyanka Naik is here with us, super chef, master chef, and we are loving it. Hi, thank you for coming back.
Hey, guys.
So we have something amazing here, which is the Tofu 65. But before we start, we're going to take a short look at this video because I tried it last night, right? So let's see how that went.
Tell me when you're...
Of course. So while we taste, can you explain what your Tofu 65 is for us?
Sure. So it looks like you guys are enjoying it. I hope those are honest reactions. Basically, Tofu 65 is my vegan rendition of a very popular South Indian dish called Chicken 65. And as mentioned, I used to eat chicken back in the day, in my former unlightened life. And now that I've been enlightened, I do not eat Chicken 65 anymore, but I really love the flavor profile of Chicken 65 because it combined a lot of the different South Indian ingredients and flavors that I was really accustomed to at home, like curry leaves, which we call curry patta, and black mustard seeds and chilies. And it really was bold in flavor. And I wanted to bring that to tofu to make it accessible for everyone. So this is kind of my rendition of that. And a funny kind of really dark humor story behind it is what my sisters and I asked my dad when we were little, like, why is this called Chicken 65? And keep in mind, my dad is like strict vegetarian, has never touched meat in his life, has been stricter than all of us his whole life. And he was like, well, because they, slaughter the chickens at 65 days old. And then my sisters and I were traumatized. Like, we can't eat this anymore. And we're totally gullible. And I'm pretty sure he made that up. But yes, traumatized me. So I
Sounds like something. Sounds like somewhere you just kind of pass through, not actually stay.
So, Priyanka, I have a question. So, I'm from the Mid-South, Tennessee, so we tend to use a lot of dishes that involve chicken. So, is tofu a good general substitute for chicken when cooking? If I want to incorporate more of that?
Yeah, tofu is great. Cauliflower or potato I find really hearty and great as well. Another one is seitan, which I'm not sure if it went viral on TikTok earlier this year, like making your own chicken at home, which is basically like glutinous flour mixed with water. So there's so many different options. There's actually a place in New York that you might be familiar with called Sweet Chick, which is a chicken and waffles place, and they make vegan chicken and they use kind of like their own homemade seitan. So there's a lot of different substitutes. I tend to use tofu and cauliflower.
So is that something that you use in a lot of your dishes to stay within that traditional realm?
So I think the word curry probably has like a lot of debate around it now.
Yes.
I do not really use anything that's kind of deemed a curry powder because it's generally a combination of different spices that we use whole or kind of on their own. Nothing against curry powder. I think it's really good. It's just it's kind of a westernized version of a culmination of spices that are readily found throughout different regional Indian cooking. So I think with Jamaican cuisine, which I've been to actually Jamaica a few times, and I love because it was spicy, a lot of the same spice profiles that we use, because there was a lot of exchange of culture through colonization between the Caribbean and West Indies and India. But I tend to not use too much curry powder. I know it's really prevalent in the Western world, but I think it combines a lot of the same spice profiles.
So that's pretty interesting. I never thought of it that way.
So, Priyanka, I have another question for you too. So, in the South, when we tend to like stew our vegetables, we would use different types of meat, smoked meat, stuff like that. What is a good vegan alternative to that? Like when you're stewing your vegetables, what do you use?
So that's a great question, and something that you'll probably find in my book, The Modern Tiffin, is that I actually don't use any faux meat or kind of I don't mimic too many non-veg dishes. I mean, the tofu 65 is a rendition of a chicken dish, but I try to stay away from mimicking meat a lot because I grew up eating vegetables as like the star of the show. So I try to bring that to my book because I want people to think about vegetables in a new way. I don't want them to just be like, well, you know, I used to do this with meat, so I'm going to do this now. No, not to be like, oh, your question's not valid. It's just I try to stay away from that because I want to broaden people's perspective. But for your question, I have smoked actually jackfruit. I barbecue pop-up right before the pandemic, and I did a complete vegan menu, and I smoked jackfruit, and a lot of the different spices that I use to kind of emulate that flavor are mango powder, which we call amchur powder, which adds a little bit of sweet, and then also black salt, which is really kala namak, which is a very common Indian ingredient that you'll probably see now a lot to emulate egg flavor or even like a meaty-ish flavor to it. So there's a lot of spices that you can use to emulate a similar kind of smoky flavor profile that you'll get with barbecue or kind of like if you're smoking.
Right. Well, we are definitely going to have to get more from you later on. It was great having you on the show with us. You gave us so much tips. We completely enjoyed this.
Yes.
And we want you to stay connected with us. Stay connected with our audience. You can find us on social media. Where can they find us?
At Candice and Kris Live.
And thank you, Priyanka, for joining us. We gotta go.
Thank you so much. See you guys next time.